Sung Jinwoo grumbles as his phone wakes him. His teenage sister Gina is on the other end, and she chastises him for sleeping into the afternoon. More importantly, he will be late for his meeting with her teacher. Jinwoo bolts upright. When he arrives at school, Gina stares at her formerly disheveled and timid brother. Thanks to Jinwoo's increasing power and strength, he now turns heads with his tall, athletic build. During their meeting, Gina's teacher reassures Jinwoo that she's on track for medical school. Her teacher also has an unusual request. Gina's friend, Han Song-yi, has been working as an E-rank hunter instead of going to school. The teacher turns to Jinwoo, a fellow E-rank, to speak to her. It turns out they're acquainted, having worked together when Jinwoo and Yoo Jinho needed to fill out a raid roster with other hunters. Jinwoo finds Song-yi, but he's not going to demand she stop working as a hunter, he tells her. Instead, he wants to show her something. Meanwhile, hot-headed S-rank hunter Hwang Dong-soo arrives in Japan to get revenge for the death of his younger brother, Hwang Dong-suk. His sights are set on Jinwoo and Jinho. Woo Jinchul of the Hunters Association confronts him at the airport, but Dong-soo is undeterred. Elsewhere, Choi Jong-in briefs the head of the association, Go Gun-hee, about the evolving monsters of Jeju Island. That evening, Jinwoo and Song-yi join a raid getting ready to enter a C-rank gate. He asks to come along as a training opportunity for Song-yi, and his colleagues An and Hyun pulled some strings to get them in. The leader, an A-rank named Kim Chul, doesn't hide his annoyance at two E-ranks tagging along. Jinwoo isn't bothered, intending to use the raid to show Song-yi how brutal the life of a low-ranking hunter can be. The group enters the gate. As they do, Jinwoo senses something is amiss, and the gate turns red behind them. It disappears in a flash of light. The hunters find themselves standing in a forest of howling wind and snow. Red gates send groups to isolated dungeons that can't be escaped until the boss is defeated, Jinwoo tells Song-yi, and no one can enter to help. An ice arrow suddenly strikes one hunter, and Jinwoo catches another before it hits Song-yi. Ice elves! The group knows they're in trouble. The ruthless Chol tells the weaker hunters to survive on their own while they hunt the boss, essentially sacrificing their lives. B-rank hunter Park Heejun wisely volunteers to stay with them, having noticed Jinwoo's skills. The others leave. A group of ferocious ice bears quickly besets Chul's group. Elsewhere in the forest, Heejun points out signs of the same bears. Jinwoo says that means the area is clear of ice elves, which is relatively good news. Since they're going to be there a while, Jinwoo summons cold weather items for the group. They're shocked, since this is a high-rank skill, and he asks them for only one thing in return. Don't ask any questions. Outside the red gate, S-rank hunter Baek Yunho arrives to help. An and Hyun tell him about Jinwoo and express their hope that he can help the others survive. Dong-soo and Jinchul pull up in a car behind them, looking for Jinwoo, and Dong-soo's annoyed that the red gate will finish him off before he can. Jinchul considers this lucky for the E-rank hunter. Back inside, Jinwoo finishes off a pack of ice bears with his bare hands, noting that the experience payout is high in a red gate. The group sets up camp. While the others take a moment to rest, Jinwoo heads out for some exercise. Jinwoo tracks the ice bears to their den and calls forth his recently acquired shadow army. The soldiers emerge from the shadows alongside Igris the Red. Jinwoo watches as the infantry and ice bears clash. While their power is considerable, the army drains his MP quickly. The leader of the ice bear pack emerges from the den with a roar. After it wipes out the soldiers, Jinwoo commands Igris to attack. With just a few swings of his powerful sword, Igris carves the massive ice bear into pieces. Jinwoo's impressed. He thinks he might still be weaker than the incredible Igris, who kneels before him. Elsewhere in the forest, Chul struggles to catch his breath. Vicious ice elves stand before him, grinning as most of the group lies bloody in the snow around him. The A-rank hunter screams and runs away, and the glowing eyes of the ice elves' leader follow him. Inside the red gate, Sung Jinwoo finished off the ice bears. He used his power to turn their dead bodies into shadow soldiers for his army. Outside, 3 hours had passed, and Hwang Dong-soo was angry that he didn't get to kill Jinwoo himself. Believing Jinwoo was connected to manager An, Hwang attacked An, but Baek Yunho stopped him. The two powerful S-rank hunters fought, their punches creating shockwaves. Meanwhile, inside the gate, A-rank hunter Kim Chul was going crazy as he walked alone through the snow. He found the dead ice bears and ran away, thinking ice elves had killed them. Wu Jinchul stopped Huang and Yunho's fight. He told Huang that he checked Jinwu himself and confirmed he was an E rank. Huang didn't care about ranks. He just wanted to kill someone. He left. In the snowy woods, some low-rank hunters were eating and staying warm at their camp. Chul found them and yelled at them, blaming them for his friends' deaths. He pulled out his sword, but Jinwu suddenly appeared and knocked him out. Jinwu wasn't interested in Chul, but he was looking at the invisible ice elves that had followed him. The ice elf leader Barsa came out and made fun of Jinwu. Jinwu talked back in the monster's language, which surprised everyone, including himself. One ice elf challenged Jinwu, and Jinwu quickly killed it. Barsa was interested. He said that all monsters hear a voice telling them to kill humans, but the voice is silent when it comes to Jinwu. Jinwu wondered if this had something to do with the system. He saw that no one else could. Barsa offered a deal. He'd leave the other hunters alone if Jinwu gave them to him. Jinwu refused and summoned his shadow army. The fight began, and the other hunters hid. Jinwu knew his shadows were strong, but he was worried about Barsa. He'd need even stronger shadows to beat him. Jinwu and Barsa began to fight one-on-one. As they fought, Kim Chul woke up and tried to attack Jinwu. Igris killed Chul. Jinwu turned Chul into a shadow soldier named Iron. Iron made fun of Barsa, and Barsa challenged Jinwu and Igris to fight him too. They agreed. It was 3 against 1, but Barsa was still strong. Jinwu threw his dagger and brought it back, distracting Barsa. Iron grabbed Barsa and Jinwu stabbed him in the side. Then Iron hit Barsa with his hammer over and over. The remaining hunters were happy that their time in the Red Gate was over. Outside, Yunho and An were waiting. They were surprised to see the low-rank hunters, including Jinwu, come out instead of Chul. The gate closed, and Yunho was shocked that Chul and the others were dead. Yunho asked Jinwu what had happened. Jinwu ignored him and pointed out that he had saved lives. Yunho apologized. As Jinwu and Song Yi walked away, Yunho told An to try to persuade Jinwu to join them. On his way home, Jinwu was upset that he only got Barsa's weapon. He also thought about how he's now killed people for the 3rd time. The next morning, Yu Jinho, wearing new armor, picked him up for work. Song Yi also joined them, surprising Yu Jinho. Together, they set off for the adventure ahead. Yu Jinho is in shock as he sees Sung Jinwu's shadow army for the first time. The soldiers move swiftly during their latest raid, slaying magical beasts and even harvesting the dungeon's essence stones. Meanwhile, in another dark dungeon, an American hunter panics as he is approached by a wild-looking man. "I want to go home," the stranger says. Jinwu and Jinho are celebrating the successful completion of the guild raid requirements with beer and BBQ. Jinho still needs to finish a written exam and convince his father to allow him to take over their family guild, but he's getting closer to his goal of running it. Feeling a bit tipsy, Jinho expresses that he and his older brother aren't close, and he wishes that Jinwu were his older brother. Jinwu smiles warmly and replies that starting today, he considers Jinho his younger brother. The disheveled massive man sits silently in a holding cell. He has been trapped in a dungeon for 10 years, according to his story. 2 official-looking men are discussing him, unsure if he is actually a humanoid magic beast. Since he struggles with English, the Americans are bringing in an S-rank hunter to translate, an annoyed Huang Dongsu. The mysterious man's name is Song Il-Huan. Jinwu is preparing to leave for a week-long trip. His sister Gina comments on how busy he has been lately. He has been focused on the Demon King's castle and the promised reward of the Elixir of Life, which motivates him to pursue the quest to find a cure for their mother's unusual illness. Jinwu estimates that he is now 3 times stronger than he was during his first visit to the dungeon, making the challenge seem much easier this time. Upon entering the castle, Jinwu receives a quest notification to kill 10,000 magic beasts. He's astonished by the number, but is determined to do whatever it takes to save his mother. Jinho finally sits down with his father to formally request taking over the guild membership from his older brother, Jin Sung. His father's interest is understandably focused on Sung Jinwu and his involvement in several unconventional raids. He agrees to grant Jinho's request to lead the Yujin Guild on the condition that Jinwu joins it. Jinho accepts the terms. Back in the dungeon, Jinwu clears the first floor of monsters. He summons the Shadow Ice Bear, whom he dubs Tank, and climbs on his back. They sprint to the next floor of the castle. In a change of scenery, renowned S-rank hunter Cha Hai-in emerges from a swimming pool. She reflects on the evolving magic beasts of Jeju Island that she witnessed alongside Choi Jong-in. After their return, Choi was instructed to keep their existence a secret from the public. He reassures her that for now, they need to focus on building their strength. Jinwoo continues to ascend the dungeon floors. The magical beasts are growing stronger as he climbs higher, but so far, none have posed a significant challenge. On the plus side, he is gaining levels along the way. With 100 floors remaining, Jinwoo believes he will be considerably stronger by the time he reaches the top. His main concerns for now are his supplies and the time remaining, as Gina is waiting for him. As he reaches the milestone of 10,000 monsters slain, Jinwoo arrives at the 50th floor, where he confronts the high-level boss of the lower floors, Avaricious Vulcan, along with his army. Jinwoo then summons his own shadow army to combat them. Jinwoo blinks, and Avaricious Vulcan moves faster than he can see. However, he manages to dodge its attack, and their battle begins. The magic beast is massive, and it's faster and smarter than it appears, but it doesn't stand a chance. By using the environment to his advantage, Jinwoo delivers a fatal blow. In America, Sung Il-hwan tells Hwang that he is human and explains that the dungeons, gates, and magical beasts are just the beginning of a much larger crisis. An ultimate catastrophe is unfolding, and it is his responsibility to stop it. Hwang notices on the paperwork that Il-hwan has a wife and 2 children, one of whom is named Jinwoo. The aggressive S-rank hunter smirks and claims that his son is dead and that Sung Il-hwan will meet the same fate. However, Il-hwan has something to say in response to that. Meanwhile, deep within the dungeon, Jinwoo and his army swiftly annihilated the magical beasts, leaving only one foe remaining, Metis. The battle had been utterly one-sided, a display of overwhelming power that even Jinwoo found almost effortless. Observing Metis, Jinwoo couldn't help but wonder, could an immortal magical beast fear death? The thought lingered for only a moment before he decided to put it to the test. With a final, decisive strike, he ended Metis, watching as the once mighty creature crumbled into nothingness. And a system message pops up saying that he leveled up. Meanwhile, in America, after the brief but explosive fight between Sung Il-hwan and Hwang Dong-soo, the building lies completely demolished, and Hwang is unconscious. Il-hwan is nowhere to be found. Jinwoo's time and supplies finally run out on the 75th floor. The levels and item rewards were worth the effort, he thinks, especially since he obtained another secret dungeon key. He now possesses 2 of the 3 items needed for the Elixir of Life. And as for the 3rd item, when he returns, he plans to finish what he started. Sung Jinwoo steps out of the gate that leads to the Demon King's castle. Although he has made progress toward completing the quest for the Elixir of Life, he needs to be fully prepared and significantly leveled up before returning. Dungeon raids for E ranks are no longer sufficient. It's time for him to have his hunter level officially reassessed. The rank assessment office is bustling with anxious potential hunters, each hoping that their ranking will be high enough to support a living. E rank, the lowest designation, is generally deemed insufficient for a full-time hunter. Kichul, a recruiter for the White Tiger Guild, scans the crowd and gasps when he spots Jinwoo. He quickly calls the guild leader, S-rank hunter Baek Yunho, and breathlessly informs him that Jinwoo is being reassessed. Baek immediately bolts out the door to arrive at the scene. Jinwoo waits quietly, waiting for his turn to be tested. When his name is called, he enters the testing room, where he is asked to touch a machine that measures his magical power. However, the machine continuously returns errors, leaving the administrator perplexed. When her supervisor comes in to check on the situation, he is taken aback by the results. Jinwoo's power is so immense that the machine cannot measure it. This means he is classified as an S-rank hunter, joining the ranks of only 9 others in the country. Just outside, Choi Jong-in, the leader of the Hunters Guild, and Woo Jin-chul, an investigator from the Hunters Association, were discussing the recent strange occurrences. They overheard a commotion coming from inside and decided to check it out. Word had spread quickly in the lobby about Jinwoo, who had been asked to return in 3 days for a final assessment to confirm his S-rank status. Choi's entrance caused an even bigger stir. Everyone in the room, including Jinwoo, recognized him. Choi flashes a smile at Jinwoo and confidently begins his recruitment speech, extending his hand. However, Jinwoo walks past him, offering a brief apology. Choi is taken aback by this rejection. Just then, Baek bursts through the doors only to realize that he has missed Jinwoo. Meanwhile, Jinwoo takes a seat beside his mother's hospital bed, where she is suffering from a mysterious illness known as eternal sleep, which has left her in a coma-like state. He gives her a rare smile and gently asks her to wait a little longer for a cure. Woo waits respectfully for Jinwoo in the hallway. Jinwoo isn't particularly interested in what he has to say until he senses another presence nearby. Hunters Association Chairman Go Gun-hee steps out of the shadows. They both take seats in the lobby. Go Gun-hee admits that, as an administrative public institution and not a profit-driven private guild, the association doesn't have many high-rank hunters. He asks Jinwoo to join them in order to help maintain balance among the guilds. Jinwoo considers the offer, partly because Go was the first S-rank hunter. However, he politely declines, not due to financial reasons, but because he wants to fight. His decision immediately earns Go Gun-hee's respect. Jinwoo contemplates the job offer as he walks home. Although it could have been a great opportunity for his career, he realizes he needs to continue leveling up for the sake of his mother. Meanwhile, in a hospital bed in America, S-rank hunter Hwang Dong-soo is recovering from the beating he received from Sung Il-hwan. The deputy chief visits him to inquire whether Il-hwan might actually be a magic beast. Hwang responds that Il-hwan certainly resembled a beast to him. Frustrated and furious, Hwang is aware of Il-hwan's plans and is determined to acquire powerful artifacts to defeat him. Jinwoo has a similar idea. Artifacts, which are typically found in dungeons, are an expensive means of gaining power and abilities. As he prepares for the challenges of the Demon King's castle, he's willing to use any resources available to him. Although he could sell the Sphere of Avarice he obtained, its A-rank status would likely raise too many questions about its origin. Instead, he comes across a posting that is recruiting miners of any level for an A-rank gate, providing the perfect cover story he needs. Go investigates Jinwoo's background and notices that he seems like a completely different person from what is presented in his initial file. He admires Jinwoo's resilience as an E-rank hunter, as he endures injury after injury while continuing to raid. Jinwoo reports for mining duty at the A-rank raid. Despite still being listed as an E-rank hunter, the supervisor doesn't expect much from him and gives him a friendly pat on the shoulder. His role is not to fight, but to mine mana crystals after the strike team has cleared out the magic beasts. S-rank hunters Choi and Cha Ha-yin are already inside doing just that. When they exit the gate, Jinwoo sees Cha for the first time and is impressed by her aura. The mining team then heads in. Inside the cave, Jinwoo senses the presence of an A-rank boss nearby. If he defeats it, the gate will close, making the crystals inside inaccessible and resulting in significant financial losses for the guild. However, Jinwoo can't shake the curiosity about whether he could take it on. When the other miners go on break, he rushes down the tunnel to the boss's lair, eager to provoke it just a little. With a grin, he summons his weapon, but suddenly hears a voice behind him. It's Cha Ha-yin, and she demands to know what he's doing. He explains to the S-rank hunter that he got lost, and she accepts his explanation. As he walks past her to return to the mining team, Cha gasps. She quickly runs up to Jinwoo and inhales deeply, surprising him. Cha possesses a supernatural sense of smell, and to her, all hunters have an unpleasant odor except for Jinwoo. He smells good? Jinwoo meets up with the other miners after finishing a hard day's work. They chat amiably about Cha and her sensitivity to other hunters. Jinwoo starts to wonder if he smells different because he is the player. The miner's boss compliments him on his hard work and offers him a permanent position on the crew. Jinwoo politely declines the offer but agrees to take one more job for the following day. Later that night, Cha calls the Hunters Guild to request an investigation into Jinwoo. A staff member on the phone informs her that guild leader Choi Jong-in made the same request. However, the Hunters Association has mysteriously locked Jinwoo's file. The next morning, Jinwoo reports to the mining boss. The crew smiles and greets him warmly, which reminds him of the friends he had during his E-rank raid days. They efficiently mine the C-rank dungeon and take a break for lunch. Captain Sun Ki-hoon, the leader of the A-rank strike team, approaches the crew's boss and asks if anyone is willing to haul equipment during their raid, as their carrier didn't show up. Jinwoo volunteers for the task. The massive dungeon gate emits little magic power, so Ki-hoon tells Jinwoo it shouldn't be very dangerous. The strike team, made up of 6 A rank and 3 B rank members, strides confidently into the gate. Jinwoo feels a sense of unease as they enter the dungeon. Noticing his discomfort, the group's healer offers him reassurance. Meanwhile, Ki-hoon daydreams about becoming captain once the boss is defeated, but suddenly halts as he senses something lurking ahead. Out of the shadows, dungeon jackals attack. The experienced hunters swiftly dispatch the creatures and soon realize that they are wearing collars. What could possibly tame C-rank magical beasts? Jinwoo and the other hunters quickly uncover the unfortunate answer. A group of high orcs emerges from the passage ahead. These formidable creatures are a challenge even for A-rank hunters, and their sheer numbers make them difficult to defeat. Jinwoo decides to secretly lend a hand. He saves their healer and then helps finish off the remaining orcs, using his stealth to slow them down with some well-placed strikes. The hunters notice the high orcs slowing down, and while they don't know why, they'll take the win. One astute mage had spotted Jinwoo in stealth, but she decides to keep his secret. The group asks Ki-hoon if they should keep going into the dungeon, suggesting that they should get more hunters to be safe. Ki-hoon proves he's a level-headed leader by agreeing readily. But when they return to the gate, they're shocked to see it's blocked by a powerful barrier. The magic users think they can dispel it and get to work. But when they begin to cast, the magic turns on them. It's a trap. Ki-hoon gasps as he turns to see an army of monstrous high orcs standing behind them. One sneering high orc steps forward, shaking its head strangely before opening its mouth. To the hunter's surprise, a disembodied voice emerges, speaking words they can understand. Kargalgan wants to meet the humans, and it's stated that his soldiers won't attack if they agree to the meeting. Ki-hoon knows he has no choice. He informs Jinwoo that he and the strike team will confront the boss, who will likely drop the barrier to focus on them. This gives Jinwoo a chance to escape. The team is willing to sacrifice their lives so that Jinwoo can seek help from a strike team capable of closing the gate. The healer gives him her last wish to pass on to her family. Jinwoo is reminded of the double dungeon and the despair he felt back then. However, this time his group isn't abandoning him. They are working to save him. Outside the gate, Cha's come to look for Jinwoo. She's surprised to hear he's inside. The strike team enters a massive hall flanked by high orcs on all sides. Kargalgan sits on a throne and bids them welcome with an ominous tone. S-rank hunter Cha Ha-yin gazes at the enormous dungeon gate, pondering once again why an E-rank hunter like Sung Jinwoo would want to venture inside. After a moment of contemplation, she decides to follow him, although she realized she hadn't brought her armor or weapons. The boss of the mining crew awkwardly hands her a pickaxe, and with it in hand, Cha steps through the gate. Meanwhile, the Hunters Guild strike team is surrounded by an army of agitated high orcs. If they escape the dungeon, the hunters realize entire cities could be leveled. The dungeon boss, Kargalgan, taunts the hunters and informs them their deaths will be entertainment for his soldiers. Captain Sun Ki-hoon rushes forward to attack. Kargalgan slams the helpless hunter into the ground repeatedly with gravity spells, until Jinwoo catches him in mid-air. He asks Ki-hoon for permission to eliminate the magic beasts. The captain manages to whisper yes, and Jinwoo summons his shadow army. Wu Jinchul of the Hunters Association arrives at the gate. Part of his job is monitoring S-rank hunters, which now includes Jinwoo. The association measures the magic power of the dungeon again and discovers it's now high A rank, close to S rank. Back inside, Jinwoo isn't scared of the blustering Kargalgan. His soldiers are even stronger after their time inside the Demon King's castle. The boss orders the attack and the High Orc army versus the Shadow army fight begins. Iron, Igris, and Jinwoo take out several High Orcs by themselves, and the strike team hunters watch in shock. Kargalgan attempts the same gravity spells on Jinwoo, who dodges them without a problem. The High Orc leader says he's going to win when Jinwoo runs out of magic power. Jinwoo still isn't bothered because he has something no one else does: MP potions. He claims the fallen High Orcs for his Shadow army and informs Kargalgan that he'll be joining them soon. The dungeon boss feels fear for the first time as he recalls the command he heard in his head over and over again when he first arrived there. Hunt the humans! At the Hunters Guild HQ, guild leader Choi Jong-in receives word about the gate and prepares to send reinforcements. The battle inside the dungeon continues. As Igris, Iron, and Tank take on the High Orc lieutenants, the strike team hunters prepare to join in the fray. Kargalgan curses them and tells them the audience is only there to watch. The dungeon boss finally rose from his throne and steps down to face Jinwoo himself. Kargalgan casts a variety of curses on Jinwoo, all to no effect. He's got a passive skill that provides immunity to all toxic and abnormal conditions. Jinwoo summons his magic-casting shadows, which shatter the boss's protective shield and land a solid hit. Cha arrives in the main hall just in time to stare in shock at Jinwoo's summoned army. She rushes over to the strike team. Ki-hoon, under the care of the group's healer, is going to be okay. None of them can make sense of what they're seeing. Kargalgan, however, is big mad now, literally. The dungeon boss casts strength and gigantification on himself, towering over Jinwoo. Jinwoo has bad memories of giants, he says mildly, so he's a little annoyed. Kargalgan unleashes magic attack after magic attack, but doesn't notice Jinwoo is behind him. The hunter takes out one of his eyes with a quick slice. Jinwoo uses telekinesis to grab a massive chain and wraps it around the enlarged high orc. He uses it to pull Kargalgan down to the ground. Wu enters the hall just as the dungeon boss falls. Cha, realizing that means Jinwoo is under the Hunters Association surveillance, can't believe how strong he must be. As for the man of the hour, he sends Kargalgan's own lieutenants, now part of his shadow army, to finish off their former leader. Jinwoo then claims Kargalgan for his own, giving him the name Tusk. He surveys his new soldiers with a smile. He's surprised to hear Wu's voice behind him. He was so caught up in extracting the shadows he didn't notice his arrival. The strike team begins to ask Jinwoo questions, but Wu steps in front of him and says that his status is top secret. Wu asks them to keep his abilities confidential. The hunters bow to thank Jinwoo for saving their lives. Cha blushes, a little embarrassed that she was standing there with a pickaxe. Later, at the Hunters Guild headquarters, Choi asks Ki-hoon if he thinks Jinwoo is more powerful than he is. They both know the answer is yes. Choi wants to recruit him into their guild. Yu Jinhoo, however, wants the same thing. He meets Jinwoo for coffee to broach the subject. Elsewhere at the Hunters Association, the media is abuzz with the news that famous actor Lee Min-sung awakened as a hunter. He sits in a car with a smug smile, pleased with himself for having it all. Reporters gather restlessly outside the Hunters Association. S-rank hunters, Baek Yoon-ho and Choi Jong-in arrive, surprised and disinterested, to find out that the press is waiting for famous actor Lee Min-sung to announce becoming a hunter. Baek and Choi are there to try to get a word with Sung Jin-woo, who's scheduled to be confirmed as the country's newest S-rank hunter. They bicker about which of their guilds Jin-woo should join. Meanwhile, at school, Jinwoo's sister Gina and her friend Song-yi overhear their classmates' gossip about Lee. He's started his conference, dramatically telling the gathered press that he's going to fulfill his fated destiny and become a hunter. In truth, he's just planning to dabble as a hunter long enough for his scandals to be forgotten before resuming his acting career. As the devious Lee holds court in front of the association building, Jinwoo strolls up the steps to enter for his reassessment. One of Lee's lackeys scolds him for interrupting the press conference, but Chairman Go steps in and takes Jinwoo inside. Lee attempts to follow them to salvage the situation, but Wu Jinchul blocks his entry. The actor tries to play the "Do you know who I am" card, but Wu is unfazed. An association staffer asks Jinwoo to confirm the nature of his abilities. Since the cat's already out of the bag, Jinwoo sighs and summons his entire shadow army. Baek and Choi-in, waiting outside, gasp when they sense his magic power. Jinwoo's given a new hunter's license declaring him an S rank, the first one classified in 2 years. He's pleased he can now buy and sell magic items without raising any red flags. The Demon King's castle is within reach. Go gives Jinwoo a warm smile. As he leaves the building, Choi and Baek try to talk to him, but Jinwoo walks by, mumbling an apology. Choi starts to warn him not to open the door, but it's too late. The press has the 10th S-rank hunter in the country firmly in their sights. Back at school, Song-yi can't believe what she's seeing on her phone, and she shows an even more shocked Gina. Lee, meanwhile, is crushed that his thunder has been stolen. Elsewhere, Yu Jinho apologizes to his father. Jinwoo declined his offer to join their guild because he was still focused on getting stronger, and asked Jinho to join him instead. His father's highly displeased that Jinho would be so selfish, but the young hunter wants to support his friend. Back at the association building, Beck offers Jinwoo a ride to get away from the clamoring press. Jinwoo has it handled. He disappears in a flash of speed that not even Baek can see. Beck's stunned that his power seems to have increased. Is that even possible? Jinwoo's eager to go shopping. At the hunter's auction, the staff helps him find artifacts that protect against flame. A place named the Demon King's Castle is very hot, obviously. He's shown a cape and a ring that should do the trick. He gasps at the price, however, and asks about a discount. The staffer jokes that if he can shatter the magic glass, he can have them for free, and then panics when Jinwoo rears a hand back to do just that. Both are embarrassed and they apologize to each other. Jinwoo browses the store's weapons and realizes the items he buys for gold in his player store are worth a lot of money in the real world. The next morning, Gina looks out their apartment window and is relieved to see the press is gone. She scolds her brother for making a huge scene without warning her. The doorbell rings and it's Jinho, reporting for duty as the trusty sidekick, and maybe as a roommate since he moved out of his parents' house. Jinwoo plans to be gone for the next week and tasks some shadow soldiers to protect Gina and patrol the city while he's gone. Jinwoo dons his new gear and enters the dungeon. A system message pops up with a quest to defeat the demon monarch Baran on the highest floor of the castle. Jinwoo's pumped, and he heads to the 75th floor. Elsewhere, Jinho's parents discuss their son, and his father blacks out during their conversation. The doctor tells him that it's the first stage of eternal sleep disease, which seems to be caused by exposure to too much magic power. Inside the dungeon, Jinwoo summons Tusk, his recently acquired soldier, to take on a giant magic beast. Tusk blasts away the monster in one attack. Days pass inside the dungeon as Jinwoo splits up his army to take on monsters. On the 80th floor, he starts losing soldiers and he goes to investigate. He finds and makes quick work of 3 demon knights with 1 more to go. In the upper levels of the demon knight's castle, Sung Jinwoo evades the desperate attacks of an elite demon knight. The knight calls out a surrender. Jinwoo pulls off the demon's helmet to reveal a young lady with pointed ears and fangs who apologizes for fighting him. She nervously offers him the entry permit to proceed, as well as information on the other floors, in exchange for sparing the lives of her and her family. Jinwoo accepts. The demon knight says her name is Essel Radiru. Jinwoo tries to get more details from her about the system. She tells him they used to live in the demon realm until they suddenly appeared in the dungeon with a voice in their head to protect it. Essel's voice and eyes glitch when she tries to tell him more about a war in that realm. Back in the real world, a winged ant from Jeju Island has wreaked havoc on a city street in Japan. Almost 300 people died as well as 6 hunters before it was slain. Chairman Go of the Hunters Association estimates its power as an A rank. He orders the formation of a joint operation with Japan for the 4th raid on the island before any more monsters reach the mainland. Essel leads Jinwoo and his shadow soldier Tusk to the Radiru family castle for the permit. Her father cringes away from Jinwoo, noticing the army in his shadow, and the guards draw their weapons. Jinwoo calmly tells him about the deal they made. Essel's father hands over the permit to the 81st floor and allows her to go with Jinwoo to find what he needs on the other floors. With Essel's guidance, Jinwoo and his soldiers make their way to the 89th floor with efficiency. He notes that Igris and Tank have leveled up as well, about the equivalent of S rank and A rank respectively. Essel warns Jinwoo that the demons on floor 90 and above are considerably more powerful. When she asks why he spared her life, he says mildly that he likes her. He wonders if he works well with people who have a screw loose. Jinwoo tells Essel to return to her father, but she protests. She can still help him. He doesn't argue, and they continue to the top floor of the Demon King's castle. Her prediction about the increasing difficulty was correct, but Jinwoo and his soldiers worked their way up floor by floor. He's determined to get the elixir of life for his mother, no matter what. Meanwhile, Choi Jong-in informs Cha Hai-in that they've been summoned to join the 4th Jeju Island raid, along with all other S-rank hunters in Korea. One of Japan's strongest hunters will be joining them shortly to discuss strategy and planning. Jinwoo and Essel reach the 100th floor of the castle. It seems empty, until a screech rings out through the sky and a dragon swoops down like a bolt of lightning. Demon Monarch Baran stands on its back. Jinwoo decides to focus on the dragon, Kaisalin, since they're more dangerous in the air. Baron summons a demon army and Jinwoo barely activates his monarch domain in time as they charge forward. His army comes forth and the two forces clash. Baron unleashes a wide area attack and to her surprise, Jinwoo protects Essel. Summoning more soldiers is draining his mana quickly. Jinwoo casts stealth and attacks, but Baran can see him. This isn't going to be an easy fight. Jinwoo orders Tusk and Igris to attack, then uses the distraction to take off the dragon's head. At the Hunters Association HQ, Hanagawa of the Drawn Sword Guild introduces herself and S-rank hunter Goto Ryuji. She translates as they begin discussing their next moves. They share intel on the winged ants, determining that taking out the queen should be a priority. Japan will send 10 S-rank hunters, including Goto, to the island, with the goal of drawing out the ants so Korean hunters can get to the queen. Chairman Go agrees to the plan. Baran blocks attacks from Iron, Igris, and Jinwoo. He grabs the hunter by the head. Jinwoo breaks free, but he's out of mana and soldiers. He gives it everything he's got, using his strength and speed to slice at Baran, but it's not enough. Essel throws her weapon as a distraction, and Jinwoo uses all his strength to dismember the Demon King. A solid uppercut to the jaw finishes off Baran, and Jinwoo captures his soul. Jinwoo smiles at Essel and tells her the Radisu family is in charge now. "It's Radiru," she says. Sung Jinwoo stands on the top floor of the Demon King's castle, gazing at the demon blood he has just collected, the final ingredient needed to craft the elixir of life. Successful crafting depends on Jinwoo's intellect, so he takes a deep breath first. It works, and now he has 6 vials of the elixir of life. However, he has a doubt. Will it work on his mother's eternal sleep disease? Jinwoo extracts the shadow of Baran's dragon, and a system message prompts him to name it. Struggling to recall its original name, he hesitates. Essel correctly observes that Jinwoo is terrible at remembering names. He ultimately names it Kaisel, close to its original name, Kaiselin. Essel then invites him to her family's castle to celebrate, but Jinwoo has no time to waste. Using his newly acquired skill, Shadow Exchange, he swiftly leaves the dungeon by swapping positions with a soldier in his shadow army. Jinwoo sits beside his mother's hospital bed, his gaze falling on the burn scars on the side of her neck. The sight stirs a painful memory. He was the one who caused them. As a child, he had accidentally spilled scalding water on her, yet she ignored her own pain to comfort him as he sobbed. Now, with a trembling hand, Jinwoo summons a vial of the elixir of life, uncertain of what will happen. Gently propping her up, he pours the liquid into her mouth and waits. Jinwoo's mother is bathed in a soft, glowing light. Her burn scars fade away, and a healthy color returns to her face. Looking down, Jinwoo reflects on how everything he has endured has led to this moment. As moonlight spills over her bed, he gasps. His mother is sitting up, awake for the first time in 4 years, a gentle smile on her face. She softly asks about his sister, Gina, and places a hand on his cheek as she notices his wounds. Overwhelmed with emotion, Jinwoo finally lets his tears fall as she thanks him. The next morning, the doctors are stunned to see a patient with eternal sleep disease awake. Gina arrives at the hospital and breaks down in tears as she embraces their mother. Watching them, Jinwoo reflects on everything he has endured, knowing that all the pain and hardship have been worth it for this moment. Meanwhile, the Hunters Association holds a press conference about the upcoming Jeju Island raid. Across the country, people including Min Byung-gu watch the news. Chairman Go assures the public that this time, they will complete their mission on the island. As Byung-gu listens, he recalls their fallen comrade, Yoon-sok, who died in the previous raid, once saying that they were the only ones who could help Baek Yoon-ho when he needed it. Later, Gina laughs nervously as Jinwoo and their mother take in the mess she made in their apartment while he was away. Their mother smiles and suggests they clean it up together. As they tidy up, Gina remarks that they've lived there since she was born. While they chat, Jinwoo feels grateful to have them all together again, but a lingering unease tugs at him as he thinks about the lines he had to cross to make this moment possible. His mother breaks his train of thought by asking if they've heard from their father. They haven't. She then reminisces, telling them that before becoming a hunter, their father was a firefighter, and in their own ways, both Jinwoo and Gina are following in his footsteps by working hard to save others. The Hunters Association finally contacts Jinwoo about the upcoming Jeju Island raid. He goes to their headquarters to hear them out, but considers that he no longer needs to level up now that his mother is well. Just as he is about to give his answer, he senses an overwhelming surge of magic power. Baek Yoon-ho and another S-rank hunter are sparring. Chairman Go offers Jinwoo the rare opportunity to watch. As Baek fights, his fangs and claws are bared, his magic power transforming him into a monster at full strength. However, he holds back to avoid harming his opponent, fellow S-rank hunter Ma Dongwook. Japan's 10 S-rank hunters enter the gym as the sparring match continues. They immediately take notice of Jinwoo, though they can't determine whether he is a mage type or an assassin type. Their leader, Goto Ryuji, proposes an even larger group sparring match, pitting Japan's and Korea's S-rank hunters against each other. Chairman Go agrees but suggests that mage types sit out. Baek Yoon-ho, eager for a challenge, proposes a free-for-all instead. In the end, 8 hunters step forward to fight. Baek, Ma Dongwook, Cha Hai-in, and Lim Tae-gyu from Korea, facing off against Tawata, Kumamoto, Hoshino, and Tanaka from Japan. Fighters at the ready! As the S-rank battle begins, Ma activates his special ability, growing in size. Strength clashes with strength, and speed meets speed as the hunters exchange their first blows. Lim fires magic blasts at Hoshino while Baek charges at Kumamoto. However, just before Ma and Lim lose their matchups, Kumamoto flees in fear. At the same time, Cha strikes her opponent and rushes to assist Baek, who is being double-teamed. Reacting instinctively, she counters a sneak attack from Kumamoto, injuring him. In response, Kumamoto's special ability activates, sending him into a berserk rage. He launches a relentless attack on Cha, but before his kick can land, Jinwoo jumps in to block it. Without hesitation, Jinwoo puts Kumamoto in an arm lock. Goto Ryuji is intrigued by Jinwoo, especially since he is supposedly a mage-type hunter. As the battle winds down, Cha and Baek both admit defeat. Curious about Jinwoo's strength, Goto asks if he'd like to spar. The newest S-rank hunter agrees on one condition: no holding back. Meanwhile, a news report updates the public on the upcoming raid on Jeju Island. Juhi, a B-rank healer and a former friend of Jinwoo from his E-rank days, watches thoughtfully. Concerned, she calls her guild to inquire about the raid. Back in the gym, Jinwoo and Goto prepare to face off. Baek, curious about Jinwoo's growth in power, watches intently. Just as Jinwoo begins to suggest they start, Goto launches an attack without warning. Jinwoo swiftly dodges, and the fight begins. Almost instantly, Goto realizes that Jinwoo is far from a typical mage-type hunter. Jinwoo notes that Goto is exceptionally fast and powerful, even for an S-rank, and smiles at the challenge. As the fight continues, the other hunters watch in awe as Jinwoo effortlessly dodges every punch, gradually wearing on Goto's nerves. Determined, Goto gets serious and finally manages to land a scratch on Jinwoo's cheek only for Jinwoo to catch his hand mid-strike. He could have grabbed his wrist to end the match, but he's enjoying himself too much. Just as the two prepare to unleash their full power, the other hunters step in, physically restraining them. The fight ends. Ma and Baek approach Jinwoo, congratulating him on a hard-fought match. While fighting, Jinwoo had been carefully measuring the hunters' skills and secretly sent his soldiers into their shadows to keep an eye on them. When asked about joining the upcoming Jeju Island raid, he feels uneasy and ultimately declines the opportunity. Cha notices that Jinwoo's name is missing from the raid roster, but Choi Jong-in believes that with 15 S-rank hunters, they have all the firepower they need. Meanwhile, Jinwoo returns home to find a home-cooked meal from his mother waiting for him. As he eats, he reflects on her recent recovery. He wants to be there for her. That's why he's not going to Jeju Island. Meanwhile, on the island, the Ant Queen observes her brood feeding on each other. Realizing they will soon need more space and food, she considers relocation. Just then, a highly evolved humanoid ant bursts from its egg. Sensing its potential, the queen wonders if this one could be their leader. As the Jeju Island raid dominates the news, hunters across the country consider how they can help. Retired S-rank healer Min Byung-gu contemplates his role, while E-rank hunter Han Song-yi expresses a desire to join Korea's defense force. Meanwhile, Juhi meets with Jinwoo's old friend, Song Chi-yul. A fleet of ships forms a perimeter around the island, with hunters stationed on deck, ready to prevent any stray ants from reaching the mainland. On his ship, Ma bids his vice guildmaster farewell, while Lee Min-sung poses for pictures on another. Elsewhere, Captain Sun Ki-hoon and his team stand at the ready, alongside Park Hee-jin from the Red Gate, as well as Song and Juhi. To Baek's surprise, Min Byung-gu has also joined the mission. It's a remarkable display of teamwork from Korea's hunters, and at last, The raid is a go. Japan's team of hunters, already in position on the island, unleash their magic power to create a diversion. The tactic works immediately. A swarm of ants rushes toward them, but also targets Korea's team mid-flight. However, Choi swiftly eliminates the incoming threat, allowing the helicopter to land safely. With the ants temporarily distracted, the hunters have just 1 hour to locate the queen. Elsewhere, Jinwoo completes his daily training. Though the raid crosses his mind, he assumes the S-rank hunters can handle it without him. Meanwhile, deep within the ant's nest, the hunters discover a cache of eggs, including the massive one that recently hatched. Byung-gu, understandably, is shaken by its sheer size. The Japanese hunters hold their ground, though one ant manages to land a solid hit on Kenzo. He calls for their healer, Shimizu, to patch him up, and she teases him as she gets to her feet. But suddenly, she falls silent. Her head disintegrates in an instant. The remaining hunters freeze as glowing red eyes lock onto them. On Jeju Island, a mysterious, evolved magic beast moves faster than 2 Japanese S-rank hunters can perceive. In an instant, their heads tumble to the ground. Meanwhile, inside the queen ant's lair, the Korean S-rank hunters battle relentlessly, slaying one magic ant after another, each as powerful as an S-rank hunter itself. Baek Yoonho, Ma Dongwook, Cha Hae-in, Lim Tae-gyu, and Choi Jong-in fight with healer Min Byung-gu providing support. Using his enhanced vision, Baek catches a glimpse of the queen in the deepest chamber of the lair. Determined, the group ventures further inside. On the surface of Jeju Island, 2 more Japanese S-rank hunters search for their missing colleagues. They sense the presence of the evolved magic beast, but it's already too late. Meanwhile, inside the lair, the Korean hunters reach the queen's chamber, only to find it guarded by hundreds of royal guard ants. Ma activates his defensive abilities, doubling in size, while Choi unleashes his fire magic at full strength. He doesn't hold back as countless royal guard ants are engulfed in flames. Baek unleashes his full power as well, transforming into a half-man, half-tiger with glowing eyes and an unruly white mane. With a deafening roar, he tears through the ants with his clawed hands. The cameraman accompanying the team can only stand and watch, broadcasting the battle to televisions across the country. Nearby, S-rank healer Byung-gu stays close to protect him while supporting the other hunters. Lim rains down magic arrows on the royal guard ants as the S-rank hunters work in perfect harmony to annihilate them. Meanwhile, hunters on standby outside the island, along with the entire population of Korea, watch the battle unfold through the live news feed. Finally, only the massive queen remains. The queen ant spews noxious gas at Ma and Baek. Just as it begins to eat away at their skin, Byung-gu swiftly heals them. As the hunters launch their attack, the queen emits a piercing screech into the sky. Combining their abilities, they unleash a relentless assault magic arrows, flames, claws, and blades pummeling the queen. Finally, Cha delivers the finishing blow, severing its head from its body. The people of Korea erupt in cheers. But it's too soon to celebrate. The queen's scream has summoned all the ants on the island back to the lair, and the hunters are still inside. Choi feels his magical defenses shattering as the swarm closes in. But before the ants can reach them, the evolved magic beast, its appearance resembling a humanoid black ant, arrives first. The S-rank hunters sense the staggering power of the black ant as it stalks toward them. Cha falls to her knees, overwhelmed by its stench, and they all immediately realize this is no ordinary magic beast. Standing beside the queen's corpse for a brief moment, it suddenly moves like lightning. In an instant, it strikes Cha with a devastating blow to her side, severs Ma's arms, and slashes Baek and Choi across the chest. Just as it's about to kill Lim, Ma intercepts the attack, his arms fully restored. Byung-gu uses camouflage, a stealth skill, to heal his allies undetected. However, the black ant slams Ma into the ground before turning its attention to Byung-gu, seeing through his invisibility with ease. In a flash, the beast's arm pierces straight through the healer's chest. With his dying breath, Byung-gu tells his friend Baek to run. There's no time to escape. The black ant seizes Baek by the throat and, to the hunter's shock, begins to speak. It tells Baek that they are too weak for it and that it seeks their king to answer for its queen's death. Then, in a blur, It speeds outside in search of Japanese S-rank guild leader Ryuji Goto just as another wave of magic ants swarms the hunters. Outside, Goto and the other Japanese hunters search for their unresponsive teammates. Just as they discover their corpses, Goto receives orders over the radio from Japan's guildmaster, Chairman Matsumoto. The ruthless leader commands the Japanese hunters to abandon the Koreans to their deaths. Once the Koreans are wiped out, Japan will send in another strike team to finish off the remaining ants, claiming full credit for the successful raid while simultaneously weakening Korea's military strength in one decisive move. The Black Ant, however, has other plans. As it approaches, Goto barely manages to block its attack in time. When the creature asks if he is the human king, Goto confidently answers yes. In the next instant, a curtain of darkness falls over him, and his blade shatters in two. Meanwhile, inside the lair, the Korean hunters struggle to hold back the endless swarm of magic ants, their bodies weakened by severe injuries. Cha lies unconscious while the others can barely remain standing. Just as their strength begins to fade, dark figures rise from their shadows. Jinwoo's army has arrived. His shadow soldiers surge forward, holding back the onslaught of magic beasts and shielding the hunters from certain death. Elsewhere, Jinwoo stands, his eyes glowing as he utters a single word: exchange. Exhausted and heavily wounded, the hunters have no idea where these soldiers came from. As Igris, Tusk, Tank, and Iron join the fray, cutting down numerous ants, the hunters gasp in disbelief. From the shadows, one more figure steps forward, Sung Jinwoo. Off the island, viewers watching the live stream of the raid, including Chairman Go of the Hunters Association Express, concern as the broadcast suddenly cuts off. Inside the lair, the cameraman frantically fumbles with his equipment, trying to get it working again. Meanwhile, Iron taunts the ants, drawing their attention, while Jinwoo gives his army the order to attack. The S-rank hunters can only watch as Jinwoo's elite soldiers cut down the magic ants with ease. Jinwoo assures Baek Yunho that he'll explain everything later and summons potions to treat their wounds. However, when he attempts to use one on the mortally wounded Cha Hai-in, a system message informs him that her health is too low for it to take effect. Realizing the urgency of the situation, he shifts his focus to getting her medical help as quickly as possible, but the swarm of ants continues to grow in number. Back at the Hunters Association, the staff scrambles to gather any information on the hunters' status, but Japan's hunters remain unresponsive as well. Chairman Go sinks into his chair in frustration, cursing his aged and battered body for preventing him from being on Jeju Island himself. Meanwhile, in Japan, their chairman is visibly irritated, furious that Goto Ryuji allowed himself to be killed by the Black Ant. In the ant's lair, Jinwoo's shadow soldiers continue clearing the tunnel to secure the hunters' escape. However, the process is too slow. Turning to the small group of hunters, Jinwoo asks them to keep what they are about to witness a secret. Suddenly, Jinwoo senses a powerful presence as the Black Ant emerges from the tunnel ahead. The other hunters spot it, and Baek Yunho is filled with dread, realizing that Goto is likely dead. The king wasn't outside, the Black Ant laments before asking if there is one inside the lair. Jinwoo steps forward. The creature eyes him and asks if he is the king of humans, but instead of showing fear, Jinwoo smirks and mockingly calls it a talking bug. At that moment, the camera flickers back to life, and the feed begins broadcasting live across Korea. Among the viewers, Jinwoo's acquaintances and friends recognize him, including his shocked sister, Gina. As for the newly leveled up hunter, he continues his intense stare down with the Black Ant. In a flash, the creature throws a swift punch at Jinwoo's face. The watching hunters gasp, fearing that this might be the end for him. But of course, it isn't. Jinwoo takes the hit without flinching and counters with a powerful uppercut, catching the Black Ant completely off guard. Is he really a mage? Ma Dongwook asks in disbelief. In an explosive clash of magic power, Jinwoo and the Black Ant exchange earth-shattering blows. A powerful punch sends the Black Ant reeling, but it quickly counterattacks, lashing out with its poison-laced tongue and slicing Jinwoo's face. He drops to one knee. Believing Jinwoo to be paralyzed, the Black Ant raises an arm to deliver the finishing blow. Meanwhile, the Japanese chairman, determined to salvage the raid, recalls their 3 surviving S-rank hunters, scheming to send them into the nest. Jinwoo catches the black ant's arm mid-strike before hurling it into the rocky cavern wall. His resistance to toxins has kicked in, allowing him to recover quickly. As he gets back on his feet, he senses the black ant's growing anxiety, a feeling that mirrors his own. Time is running out and he needs to get Cha Hai-in to safety. Just then, the black ant undergoes another evolution, transforming into an even deadlier form. The real fight begins. Jinwoo summons his daggers and the battle resumes. They clash in bursts of red and blue energy, moving faster than the eye can follow, blades striking against claws in a relentless exchange. The cavern walls crumble around them, but neither combatant slows down. As the black ant's claws extend, coming within millimeters of Jinwoo's eye, he activates his mutilation skill. In an instant, he dices the creature into pieces, but it regenerates its lost limbs and desperately attempts to flee. Jinwoo won't allow it. Jinwoo commands his army to unleash their full might against the magic ants, as the black ant desperately urges them forward. It attempts to flee once more, but Jinwoo ends the fight, and its life in a relentless flurry of daggers. The remaining magic ants scatter in fear. However, the hunter's sense of victory is short-lived as Cha Hai-in's condition deteriorates. In a last-ditch effort, Jinwoo gives her a priceless elixir of life, but even that fails to save the dying hunter. Desperation fills his gaze as he frantically searches the cavern for a solution. As Cha Hai-in's life ebbs away in the Ant Queen's lair, Sung Jinwoo asks the cameraman to end the live broadcast. The other S-rank hunters gasp as one of Jinwoo's soldiers gently lays the body of healer Min Byung-gu beside Cha. Baek Yoon-ho, Min's close friend, questions Jinwoo, but there isn't much time to explain. To the hunter's shock, Jinwoo extracts Min's shadow. Outside, Japan's S-rank hunters have reached their ship, where they receive the news that the black ant has been defeated. As Min turns to Cha, Jinwoo tells Baek that he heard the healer's voice asking him to use his power. Jinwoo notes that Min must have been a very kind person. He didn't have to order the shadow to help her. Min's power envelops Cha and her mortal wounds disappear. Baek tells Jinwoo that while Min's power would be a great asset, the healer despised fighting in life. He respectfully asks Jinwoo to release his shadow, and Jinwoo agrees immediately, having had the same thought. Min smiles at Baek as his shadow dissipates. Meanwhile, in Japan, the hunter's chairman is outraged by Jinwoo's sudden appearance on the island. Having lost 7 of their 10 S-rank hunters, they decide to keep the remaining 3 safe. The ships waiting off the island's shores are suddenly beset by swarms of ants running amok after their leaders' deaths. The hunters on standby fight desperately to prevent any from reaching the mainland. Baek and the S-rank hunters make it to their waiting helicopter, but the panicked ants in the air pose a threat to their escape. Jinwoo stays behind in the queen ant's lair to eliminate any remaining eggs and magic ants. He's pleased that the unhatched eggs grant him experience, allowing his levels to rise as he finishes up. Upon reaching level 100, he prepares to extract the black ant's shadow. The attempt succeeds, but as the shadow emerges from a glowing egg, a strange darkness briefly envelops Jinwoo. Then, to his shock, it speaks no other shadow has ever done that before, stopping him in his tracks. The shadow ant beseeches its king for a name, and Jinwoo names it Beru. As they step outside, Beru reports that 4,000 magic ants are still on the loose. Jinwoo orders it to help eliminate them. Beru effortlessly slices through ant after ant, saving Jinwoo's friend Song just before a magic ant reaches him. Meanwhile, aboard the S-rank hunter's helicopter, Choi Jong-in and Lim Tae-gyu struggle against the swarming ants in the air. Just as they begin to lose ground, a beam of energy rips through the magic ants. It's Jinwoo, soaring atop his shadow dragon, Kaisel. The helicopter is clear. Thanks to the hard work of the hunters both on and off the island, the mainland remains safe, and the damage is minimal. While there were casualties, Chairman Go notes that the major threat from Jeju Island has been neutralized. The raid is a success. Elsewhere in the ocean, another country's warships monitor for any stray magic ants. As the beasts appear on the horizon, they are single-handedly dispatched by a mysterious and cocky S-rank hunter with a ponytail and dual swords. A memorial service for Min Byung-gu and the other fallen hunters is held a few days after the raid. Jinwoo pays his respects, though the media covering the event speculates whether more lives could have been saved if he had been there from the start. A recovered Cha Hai-in also attends the service. Chairman Go speaks with Jinwoo and asks about his plans for the future. Jinwoo reveals that he is considering creating a guild of his own. Inside the Queen Ant's lair on Jeju Island, a group of hunters explores the caverns for any remaining magic beasts. Suddenly, a monstrous man speaking a strange language steps out of the shadows. The hunters shout in alarm, then collapse. A second figure, blue-skinned with glowing eyes, emerges and remarks that he put them to sleep to silence the noise. The two mysterious figures discuss the powerful presence they sensed within the lair and how unusual it is that he is aiding humans. The hunt will proceed as planned, the blue-skinned man notes. As they depart, each opening a different portal, a man quietly watches them. Sung Il-hwan, Jinwoo's father. Back on the mainland, the world's most powerful S-rank hunter rests his hands on the steering wheel while sitting in traffic. Meanwhile, Yu Jinho and Han Song-yi excitedly yell at Jinwoo over the phone, thrilled to hear that he's starting a new guild. Just then, Jinwoo's phone rings again. It's Chairman Go, informing him that a B-rank gate has opened on the freeway. Without hesitation, Jinwoo heads straight there and enters the gate solo to clear it. The gate turns red behind him. Unleashing the full might of his shadow army, Jinwoo loosens his tie and smirks. On to the next target, he says with a sly smile.